This is Tehachapi. Sit back and relax as Key, Corey, Greg, and Ashley talk about what's happening in and around Tehachapi.
It's Tehachapi time. Key Budge Jay Schlosser joins us, Greg Garrett, and Councilmember Phil Smith. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hey, good to be here. Good afternoon.
Now, this came together very quickly, what we're going to talk about today. This is a passing Greg in the hallway. Key, this is going on. This is what we heard. Okay, let's get the team together and let's have this conversation, share it with the public. So who would like to break the ice on what we're going to talk about?
I think Councilmember Smith, past Mayor Smith.
Yes, I would be happy to. I got a telephone call this morning from Aaron Hakimi. He's Executive Director of Kern Council of Governments. We've had some prior discussions with Greg, Jay, myself, Aaron, Shannon, Grove, and the new director, Tony Taveras of California Transportation, or Caltrans, and some others, and then Ryan Dermody from District 9, and then there was the District 6
correct
representative. We had a large Zoom meeting. I think that was April 28th, where we discussed future funding to get this, get off the dime on these truck climbing lane projects.
And drum roll.
So this morning, I got a phone call from Aaron because we had some verbal commitments that they were going to find the way to get the funding for this project. So this morning, we have in writing from Ryan Dermody through an email that this will be funded with what they call SHOP funds. It's State Highway Operations.
Something. It's safety money.
I've got it over here. It's State Highway Operation and Protection Program.
Oh, there
Yes.
you go.
So and that money is going to go toward. Greg, did you get the?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of read this if you like,
Yeah.
Phil. And that is, I am pleased to report that Caltrans has identified a path forward using SHOP funds to design, purchase right-of-way, and construct the State Highway 58 climbing lane as part of the already programmed State Highway 58 Keene Rehabilitation Project. They're going to bid in October 2025. That is the current plan.
This is
congratulations, Mr. Smith.
Oh,
Yeah.
and not just me, a lot of others. I mean, I've been promoting this as a member of Kern Council of Governments for a number of years, but in the recent years, and with Aaron Hakimi coming on board since he's been there, he's really been promoting this. And then we got Jay Schlosser and Greg, and then others that have been advocating for this in a bigger way than just one person harping away, when are we going to get it done? When are we going to get it done?
There's been a lot of people that have been really working hard behind the scenes. So we talk about one Zoom meeting back in April, but for the last couple of years, Jay, Phil, we have been really beating this drum.
Yes.
And until somebody started to listen. Senator Grove got wind of it. We talked to her about it. She was on the Zoom. Assemblyman Fong, others, the new Caltrans director, the stars have started to align, and we kept pushing until they did align. Now, we're not talking about all three segments because, Key, we've talked about climbing lanes from Bakersfield to Tehachapi. There are actually three separate climbing lane projects. This is the center and most steep climbing area, Jay?
Yeah, this is
that right?
both the windiest and the steepest section of the climb from
So what are
Bakersfield
the boundaries of that? Could you describe what that means?
Well, before we go there, let's just kind of break it down for people that don't know what we're kind of talking about, the climbing lanes. So for the average Joe, what have you been working on, Phil, for the last several years? What have you seen that this community needs, on Highway 58?
Well, anyone who drives Highway 58 coming up for Bakersfield is going to run into a truck, not literally, but they will come up behind a truck that pulls out in front of them. The first truck is going 25, and he'll try to pass going at 30, and it's going to take him a mile or so to get around the other slow truck.
Yeah. Everyone, I think, that hears our voice that lives in this area has experienced this phenomenon more times than they ever wish to count. I mean, the interesting thing about that phenomena is is we all know what it is, right? We all know what frustrates us about 58, but kind of one of the important first steps, and this is where I got involved about 5-10 years ago, was, well, translate that into technical speech for the people that make the technical decisions, right? So I think that's what we see, is the frustration of making this drive. The number of times how the trucks behave, how they interact with the motorists, how foolish motorists behave when they're interacting with the
frequent
truck.
Passing on the right.
Yeah.
And this is not about Tehachapi City.
Correct.
State Highway 58 is a it's a third busiest state highway as far as diesels or 18-wheelers. The
Goods
third
movement.
in the state. And it's an extension of I-40. The Thomas Road money is taking 58 closer to I-5. With the growth in the San Joaquin Valley, with the warehouses in the Tejon Ranch area, in the Shafter area, with the nuts that they're growing, the pistachios, there's so much commerce going. Mm-hmm. So this is a national issue. This is not just little old city of Tehachapi, even though little old city of Tehachapi has been beating this drum, and we've had a big part. I'll just say it. We've had a big part in this decision, and I'm very proud that we're able to get people to listen that are decision makers on this freeway. Or
Absolutely.
Highway.
Sure. The big part of it is I've always advocated that this is a regional issue. This is not a city of Tehachapi issue. However, it impacts our citizens every single day, whoever uses it.
Yeah, can I unbox that a little bit too?
Yeah.
Because I think some of the relevant details to what Greg was talking about, that change, not only is industry growing, but 2 or 3 major projects have occurred and or are occurring adjacent to us that drive this change in traffic patterns. One is the Kramer Junction bypass that they finished up just a few years ago. So for those of you guys who drive out to Las Vegas through this route have experienced Kramer Junction, right, where the pilot station there was at grade. That's what we call in engineering, where it's the 2 roads meet together with a traffic signal in the middle. They're at grade with each other. And we've experienced that trip back from Las Vegas where you might be stacked up for miles. And it was kind of crazy. So they did a bypass, which is where they took 58 and bypassed that intersection and went around it. So they
over 395.
And over 395. Now they no longer junction together at grade, right? So they're a separated junction. So that makes that route easier to travel for freight and for people. And so that makes it more attractive, increases traffic. Then on the other side of us in the Bakersfield area, the Thomas Road, that's what you mentioned, Greg, they've done a slew of projects that have significantly increased and will continue to increase the functionality of the Highway 99, Highway 58, the I-5 corridor, and how those are interlinked for both the residents and the folks that travel through that area, but also for freight and commerce. And so they are building, right now, they built the West Side Parkway, which is a disconnected east-west freeway, that it cuts through the city of Bakersfield, and they are completing what's known as the Centennial Corridor project now. It's a $600 million project to take the end of Highway 58 and then run it up and over the city of Bakersfield and through it to connect to the West Side Parkway, which if you've traveled that route takes you right now on a separated freeway all the way out to Stockdale Highway and like Heath or something like that. It's pretty far out there on the west side of town. And there is long-term goals to take that divided freeway all the way to I-5. Well, when those things fall into place, the ability to move freight through Kern County changes dramatically. And so now you have major freight movement down 99 and I-5, and you have now the final piece is major freight movement east and west through the county on Highway 58. And so when those pieces, they've been coming together, but when they finally interlink together, we have a lot of traffic now on 58. It's only going to balloon more. And so this has been the sort of the looming issue on the horizon for us in the technical world of, okay, we need to do something about this. It's bad now. It's uncomfortable to drive 58 now. It's dangerous sometimes to drive 58 now, and then coupled with the final piece of the puzzle is 2 of Caltrans's districts come together right in the middle of Highway 58 at the Caliente exit.
Yes.
And right there by 223. One district is District 9 out of Bishop, which is where we're at, and the other is District 6 headquartered in Fresno. Well, this is part of the messaging we've been doing as a group here for the last 3 or 4 years is, with all due respect, none of you guys ever drive this route. That's been the message to both Fresno and Bishop is, guys, you don't drive this route. None of you that report to the office drive this route, and you don't know what's occurring out here. And we are not only are we worried about today, but we're very worried about tomorrow. So what are you guys going to do about it? And that started the conversation, I don't know, maybe 5, 6...
Several years ago,
started the technical conversation 5 or 6, 7 years ago. You've been living this as a Tehachapi resident for a long, long time, Phil. And so I think that's...
And the last years that you're talking about, since 6, 7 years, and since Aaron Hakimi has come on board, he's been really focused on, okay, we've identified that a project that has been... I saw documents in 2005 by Caltrans stating that this route needs to be, this project needs to be implemented and started. So we're talking 20 years ago.
In 2005, it was recognized that this was needed.
By Caltrans. They did a study. I think one of the documents went back to 2002. So it's a 20-year time frame. And this is this should have been done years ago. But we're always on the back burner. There's always a project that's got to get done first. Aaron's been very successful in getting some of the early studies, the environmentals funded other than through a grant. Yeah. And if you want to try to get this project done by grant, you're always in competition with everyone around the state. I was just in a conversation last fall, maybe it was early spring, with folks from Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C., going after money from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. There was money there on the table for it, and there was competition from everywhere in the state. I think Madera got it, or someone else. Yeah. There's always someone with a bigger project. But at some point, you got to fix this problem here, and you can't just wait, because you'll always have a bigger project somewhere.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, if you're a trucker, you have I-80, you have 58, which is an extension of I-40, and then you have I-10. Those are really the three main east-west. And 58 turning into 40, there at Barstow, you have an option to go 15 north or 40, straight east, which will take you all the way to, the East Coast. Yeah. And so it's naturally, it needs to get done. It's been too long. We appreciate everybody's efforts. Yeah. The coalition, if you will, Kern Cog, Caltrans, Senator Grove, Fong, Phil, everybody's efforts. It really took everybody to get together, get on the same page, and say, we can get this done. Yes. Let's get this done. And that's what we've done today, Key. We have achieved a goal. We've reached a milestone here.
And we've been able to convince Caltrans that this is a Caltrans project. It's not a city of Tehachapi.
It's not a county.
It's not Kern County. Yep. It's a regional project, and they have stepped up. Caltrans has stepped up and said, we agree, and we're going to fund it with these Caltrans funds versus money. Trying to always go for a grant or something else, which is so competitive and just it's off on the horizon. It gets always pushed out. I've been on Kern Cog for 29 years maybe, and I know I was there, the West Side Freeway in Bakersfield. They were early studies were 1990, and that we're just now seeing that getting finished up. So there's these 10, 15, 20-year horizons for these projects. So this one, our turn is now.
Jay, is it time to describe the project, the boundaries, what's going on? And, we have that weird curve at Keene right by the bridge, and different things are kind of in the move. So why don't you tell the listener, what are we talking about here exactly?
So truck climbing lane is, in this case, is simply a third lane. And the reason that's really critical to the way Caltrans operates is when there are only two lanes, and this is a question I know a lot of people have maybe, is why is that truck pulling out in front of me? And where's the CHP to give them a ticket? And the reason is by law, by state law, if you only have two lanes, you cannot restrict trucks to the number 1 or number 2 lane, to the lane, the right lane.
The right side.
Yeah, that's state vehicle code. And we asked, years ago when we were first doing this, we said, why can't you just restrict them to that lane? They said, we can't. That vehicle code doesn't allow it. And so we said, okay, we understand. And so by adding a third lane, they can then vehicle restrict to the number 2 and number 3 lanes. So that's one of the critical values of a truck climbing lane is you provide space for that truck that's going very slow because he's fully burdened and maybe underpowered or a combination of both. And you provide a middle lane for those trucks that are passing that's legal for them to utilize that lane. So that's phenomenon you talked about, Phil, that we've all we laugh about because otherwise you'll just go crazy.
Yeah.
It's one truck doing 25 and one doing 27 and the two are passing, one's passing the other. And sometimes he doesn't make it and then he backs back down.
Yes.
And, you're just sitting there the whole time just wanting to, cry about it. But by that third lane allows the CHP to restrict truck traffic to the numbers 2 and 3 lane, leaving the number 1 lane where passenger cars are free for that route. So that's why a truck climbing lane has so much value is it really makes it much safer because it keeps kind of road rage down and provides adequate space for the volume of truck traffic that we have.
And the speed differentials. You're coming at 70, 75 traffic up against trucks and someone's pulling out. Those differentials in speed can be 30, 40 miles an hour that you've got to all of a sudden put on your brakes.
That's Let me maybe give you a little color to that is I classes in college as a civil engineer, they talk about that phenomenon. It's called a rolling roadblock. That's the technical term for it. When you have a truck,
and people just back up.
And it's interesting. You can watch simulations. They do it on computer modeling of how traffic wave patterns are affected by a rolling roadblock, a truck that's in the lane that's going much slower than the prevailing vehicle speed is. And it creates literal waves of traffic accordion style. So whenever I go down to LA, you experience this where you're in heavy traffic and it'll feel like it's finally going to break loose. And so you speed up to 35 and then everybody accordions back down to 10 and then it repeats over and over again. Well, that's traffic waves propagating through traffic. Sorry, I'm geeking out, but it's a really neat phenomenon that you can watch on a video camera if you ever have like an aerial view of that stuff. But it's called rolling roadblock. And you're exactly right. It has profound impacts on average speed, and it has profound impacts on driver behavior, right? So, look, we've all experienced it, getting really frustrated. At least I have. And
absolutely.
Coming home from Vegas on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Every Sunday afternoon, coming westbound, same thing.
Yeah. It's crazy. So
there's 3 segments of truck climbing lanes. The first one is in District 6, starts down around General Beale Road, and you've got the long, straight climb until you get up to the top of that where you head down to 223 by the Arvin Highway in the National Cemetery. So that's segment 1. Number 1. Segment 2 will be from Caliente, which is the boundary for District 9. It picks up, and you start heading up the very windy, steep 2 lanes. It's not that many miles, actually. I forget the actual mileage in there. But it's steep and windy, and the trucks are really slowed down until you get over that crest down to about Hart Flat.
The truck scales and Hart Flat area.
Yeah, that's the segment 2 that we're talking about.
That's the one right there.
And
the cost of this is about $65 million in that neighborhood, 63 something.
Yes,
so
that sounds about right.
All 3 projects, I think, is around $150 million, $160 million. I'm not sure absolute cost, but so this one is one. It's going to be the one that's probably the most difficult to. It's
the most expensive of the 3 segments. It's the windiest and most complicated, and then the hills are there, and so you have to deal with the earth moving to make it happen. The last segment is after you passed Keene up to the Broome Road exit. Yes. There is another pull. That is the least steep of the 3 sections. And so in terms of order of importance, segment 2 is generally by all the technical folks considered the most important segment. Segment 1 is the second most important. That's the pull from General Beale up to 223. And then the last one, hopefully we'll get sometime in the next couple of years. We're going to keep pushing.
So this was slated actually for, they've been, I've seen numbers in the 122 cycle get pushed out, 23 cycle. Here we are, 2023. And then the latest was going to be 27.
Yeah.
So we started having these discussions. They're finding some funding. We've already got, I think the environmental's done. a lot of the early preliminaries, correct?
Well, yeah, and it's something you mentioned earlier about Aaron Hakimi, who is the director of KernCog, is one of the things I've sort of learned as I've watched him, and I think that other COGs all across the state have figured out is that by funding the early stages, by finding the money to do the environmental review and to do the initial studying, which takes real time to really kind of figure out the plan, right, initially, you start building mass, which builds gravity, right? So as the project advances, even though you're still in the first phases and you don't have the money yet for construction, if you can get through those first phases, you begin to kind of convince the world, be it the politicians in Sacramento, the leaders at Caltrans, even the politicians in Washington D.C. that are helping their constituent agencies do stuff. So yeah, we funded with local money the environmental stage, or you guys did. The board did.
The Kern Council of
Yeah,
Governments.
the Kern Council of Governments local funds funded the environmental stage. With a Caltrans a little resistant to making the project a priority. And we said, well, we want to make the project a priority and we'll pay for this first phase to get you moving. And I think the lesson learned is if we do that kind of stuff, if we help ourselves a little bit, we'll find a more receptive Caltrans at the end of the rainbow.
We put our money where our mouth is, and we said, we'll fund the environmental locally.
And there'll be less reason to continue. I mean, more reason to continue at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a study, an environmental, that's important.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask, we've mentioned COG, Kern Council of Governments, other COGs. Mm-hmm. What is a COG, the Kern Council of Governments, and what is its role?
Kern Council of Governments is a metropolitan planning organization. They're called MPOs. And they basically are the body, a regional body, for our sake, in Kern County, represented by all 11 cities have a representative on there. And for the Transportation Planning Committee on there, there's two, and then there's a Kern COG part of when we have a meeting, there's two elements. But on the transportation, all 11 cities are represented.
And the
then you have a member of Caltrans representatives and two county supervisors, and I think someone from Golden Empire Transit.
That's right.
Yep.
So those are and I think there's a representative from Edwards Air Force Base on there as well.
Mm-hmm. Is he a voting member?
But I'm not sure if they're voting, but they're at the table. So the funding that we get from the federal highway, and then the state funds, and all the planning for all these regional routes come through Kern Council of Governments. So we have a say. For example, a project out in Cummings Valley, which was just completed at the intersection of 202 and Cummings Valley Road.
The turn lane.
A turn lane.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of a Kern COG decision and the things that we work on, mm-hmm. for an example. Yeah. And then the project to the east that was mentioned about the intersection at Kramer Junction, those kind of things, all these freeways, 99, 5, whatever's in Kern County, that's a regional transportation corridor, they call it, goes through the planning process at Kern Council of Governments. All the regions' representatives from the cities all have a voice, from the desert, Ridgecrest, to us on the hillside here, Maricopa, Taft, all the cities in the west side of Bakersfield and Bakersfield itself.
Tehachapi is very fortunate. Phil Smith has been on director of that organization for many years, as you pointed out, and Jay has been the chairman of the Technical Advisory Committee for many years also. So we're well represented at the Kern COG level, which is the regional planning. Nothing is built without Kern COG and, city roads, streets and roads. Mm-hmm. We do our own thing, of course. Yeah. But regionally, it all goes through Kern COG.
Let me maybe add to that, just because, Phil, you're the longest serving member of the Kern COG board at this point by probably a fair margin at this mm-hmm. point. So that longevity mm-hmm. means a lot for our vote, our representation in that group. But then, so I've been the TTAC chair. So there are two primary committees. There's a few others, but two primary committees that advise that body of leadership. One is the technical group and one is the planning group. The technical group is typically made up of the city engineers across all the cities in the county, and these are the folks that are in the trenches that are trying to make the technical decisions about, well, this is a more worthy project than that, and here are the technical reasons why. And I've chaired that for 9 years now. Yes. But then before me, there was a 1-year gap or 2-year gap in which Tehachapi didn't chair that committee. Prior to me, Greg, you did it for almost 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. And so our Tehachapi, these are important voices to our community at that more regional level. And that's part, and it's also frankly paid a lot of dividends in just relationship building. Greg,
well, I was going to say like TDA grants, the RSTP grants. I'm using acronyms here, but when we talk about bike lanes and curbs, gutters, sidewalks, street money, Pinion that we just paved, all those monies are coming through there. So representation and relationships, institutional knowledge, incredibly important.
Yeah. So this culminates a pretty big moment, though. This is,
yes. And to have it in writing, even if it is in an email, I mean, it's stated in there that it will be funded.
Yeah.
With a specific date that we'll get this done. We'll get and go to construction bids in 2025. It was going to be, even though we've had this momentum, we've had the environmentals done. Like Jay said, you get these, we funded those already. But that was a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was still going to be 6 years out from us funding an environmental document. Yeah. Another 6 years for them to say, well, I guess we could, after we get others things done, we'll get back to you. So it has been brought forward by, I think, a lot.
Can't wait for the dirt moving, and can't wait for the ribbon cutting.
Yeah, should we talk about
be too soon.
The bigger effort, because it's being combined with the Keene pavement project, and this project has been programmed for a while. And so briefly, for the sake of everyone who's about to experience this, if you drive to Bakersfield on a regular basis, I laugh because there's nothing more to do than to acknowledge that you got to break eggs to make an omelet. But that project is repaving westbound, downhill from the Tehachapi region, starting a couple of miles west of the city of Tehachapi, and then where's
Keene.
the spot? To about Keene.
Yes.
But it's really that section of road that is most dilapidated. All of us kind of know it. You instinctively, I don't know if you're like me, I get out of the number 2 lane and I sit in the left lane. Yeah, I get in the left lane because it's so bad in the right lane that you just don't want to deal. So that whole segment is being redone, but more importantly, there's a couple of locations along that route downhill that are geometrically, meaning they don't have the right slope to them or the right pitch or the right curve length.
Would that be right before the Keene Bridge where the trucks
that would be one of them.
Hit the guardrails?
Where there's every time the road gets wet, a truck slips off the road.
Even if there's just a cloud in the sky.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that project has been programmed for a while. That's actually a much bigger project even than the truck climbing lane project. It's $160 million on its own.
160 plus, yes.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been petitioning for is let's not sequence these two projects one after another. Let's do them together so that those of us who drive that route aren't experiencing 4, 5, 6 years of continuous construction on Highway 58. The problem then, of course, is we're going to get simultaneous, both directions are going to have active construction at the same time. So both apologies and condolences if that's a regular route for you, but it's an important improvement. The benefit here is the truck climbing lanes, hopefully, that work is an addition of a third lane, so hopefully won't be as impactful coming up the hill to traffic on a daily basis, and might provide some space for them to work the downhill side of the project in a manner that is less impactful to the downhill traffic. So that's the reason why Aaron actually was specifically the one who made that pitch to them. If you recall, guys, on our call with the head guy at Caltrans, he said, look, if we can get these together, it's a huge benefit to the user of the road,
yes,
both to shorten the total construction period of time and to give some more space while you're doing these projects so that the contractor has more space and we can keep traffic flowing better than...
It's an efficient use of time and taxpayer dollars. It's the only way to go.
Yeah. And if you've got equipment on site for these contractors, you're not mobilizing, and
maybe they're cheaper. Yeah, if you do it together,
be a better use for their money.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So shout out to Caltrans. Jay, they've just
they stepped up.
They've been stepping up big time, and then short term, just recently over the last couple of weeks, they have been repairing with emergency money, also the failed pavement in basically the slow lane, if you will, 58 going southbound. They closed Tucker and Mill. Didn't tell us. I wish they would have, but that's okay because they're repairing 58. So I'm all about, supporting those efforts. So thank you to Caltrans for doing that.
Yeah, these are what they're doing now are emergency repairs. And I think, it's several $1 million just for these emergency repairs.
Block repairs.
Because it's so bad.
Yep. And it'll buy us the couple of years until they do the permanent
Yes.
repairs in the section I was just speaking about. And yeah, to echo that, Greg, we've been the squeaky wheel, to use the idiom, but
I'm nodding. You can't see me, but I'm nodding.
You're being kind.
We've been an unkind squeaky wheel, but credit goes to where it is owed, which is, first locally to District 9 Director Ryan Dermody, who has been bearing the brunt of our complaints for the last couple of years, but he found a way. And then to the new Caltrans director, the chief guy, Tony Taveras. He was just newly seated in that spot, like days into it, when
I think it was that day
Senator Grove arranged a Zoom call, and we had embarrassingly some Zoom problems in the middle of the call, if you guys remember that. And I just went, "Oh no, we lost our shot." But he heard us, and and put Caltrans's money where his mouth was on that issue. So credit to him. But then I think Shannon Grove, she really pulled us across the finish line on this one.
Absolutely.
And then Aaron Hakimi at the COG has been helping us direct the drum beat, maybe is the way to put it. We've been beating the drum, but he's been funneling us to the right folks to talk to. And, so it has been a real big team effort, and so a lot of people deserve some credit. We're excited to see it happen.
That's right.
I know I spent a day out there shooting video. So that way Caltrans could create a video to send to their headquarters.
There's another example of partnerships.
Right.
Well, you might talk to them because Caltrans did a drone video down as they're approaching General Beale Road. It's on file somewhere. I have to ask Ryan for that. And it's showing coming in behind the trucks and the passing and all that. There is a video also. So whatever we can get out there, just to let the public know that it's coming together.
Well, Phil, I got to ask you this. So you've been aware of this issue for 20 years. Whenever this survey, you were exposed to it. You've been a member of the COG for
since 85.
Since 85.
95.
95.
Yes.
This morning you get a phone call. It's from Aaron Hakimi, and he says, "Phil, guess what?" What's your reaction? I'm
listening and I'm smiling, grinning ear to ear. And I said, this is the greatest news because we've had commitments. We all know about commitments but when it comes in writing and they give you dates, we're going to do this. We've found the funding and we're going to commit to this in writing and actually have a date because at the most recent Zoom meeting, it was going to be probably construction in 26. So I'm rolling my eyes thinking, well, okay, it'll be starting November 26, but then it won't start till spring. So here you go. Yeah. But now they've committed to in October of 25, go to bid date.
So that's go to bid. So it probably will start in spring of 26,
that's
physical construction, but that's usually about Caltrans's timeline for that stuff. But
we're getting 3 years from now.
Yeah. But that's a big moment, for them to have identified the money to one of the big hurdles too is right-of-way acquisition, meaning the space needed to build the expansion. And so they've identified what they need and where they're going to fund that from. And it's a big moment. I was shocked. I think I had an audible reaction when I read the email this morning too. So,
well, like I say, these timelines are 10, 15, 20 years out. So the planning on these projects, you might be a member of Kern COG, Kern Council of Governments, in this year and vote, yes, we're going to proceed. And it'll be some other member that will be there in 10 or 15 years representing your city saying, oh, yes, we got a project. Yeah. So timelines on these because of the money. You think at the Thomas Roads program, the West Side Centennial Corridor through Bakersfield started the preliminaries in the 1990, and this is, 33 years later, you're seeing the fruits of all that planning. Going through.
Well, California.
I was I was chairman at the time. Some of the bills were being paid, and we were up around $800 million for this, all the project area
in the
of
Bakersfield
that.
area.
Yes.
Sure,
it was a lot of money.
Well, California really fell behind in the transportation network, but they're trying very hard. They, meaning Caltrans and their partners, trying very hard to play catch up. And this is going to bring us where we should have been 20 years ago. But we don't want to lose sight of where we need to go to, right? Proper planning and visioning and, all the things that you talk about that are real. I knew something was up this morning when my cell phone, I was in a meeting and Jay's calling me, Phil's calling me, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder if it's 58 climbing lanes. What's going on? What's going on? As soon as I got out of the meeting, I listened to the voicemail and they're like, So congratulations to the team.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're here.
A big group effort, and that's what it took.
Yeah, for sure.
And it just shows, and I really want to emphasize this. Phil, you've been a council member here for the city of Tehachapi for over 30 years. And this has been one of the things that you identified early on. It's been a passion, and it's squeaky wheel, and you're not stopping, and you never, ever stopped.
No.
But
you have to be patient because you're waiting for great projects. City of Bakersfield, that impacted tens of thousands of people.
Needed to happen.
Had to happen.
Yeah.
You be patient.
Yeah.
You be patient and you wait your turn till you can get in queue, but you want to keep your marker there. You want to keep your spot in queue. So when the funding for one project is finishing up, you're ready to go.
Yeah, and I want to further it with, this is not just about the city of Tehachapi, but I really want to emphasize you're elected here at the city of Tehachapi, but your concern is for the entire region. This was a regional safety problem.
Yes.
And you cared about the entire region, not just about the impact on the city, but all the other commuters and people that travel, down to Bakersfield and come home, that this was something that you said, we need to stay on this.
Stay after it.
Yeah.
That's the key. Yes.
So
persistence.
Congratulations. And I just say thank you for all of your service.
Oh, absolutely.
This is definitely
what makes it rewarding.
Yeah.
It's not for yourself. It's for everybody.
Yeah. For sure.
All right.
Good job.
And I think the conversation will continue as we get closer and closer with this project. And Phil, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for all the effort. Thank you for over 30 years of service. And this is just kind of like one of those things we get excited about and was like, we got to get Phil in here. We got to get Phil in here to talk about it because you are the guy.
Well, I'm kind of the shy guy in the background, just trying to keep things, enable others to get it done. This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast, period.
Oh,
well,
first a moment.
First time.
Yeah.
First time. There will be a second.
It was funny. I told Key, I said, I'll call Phil and see if he can come over. And you said, oh, yeah, I'll be right over. And so I told Jay, hey, we're going to have a podcast as soon as Phil gets here. And Jay said, text me when he gets here. 38 seconds later, you're here. I'm like, Jay, Phil's here. Yeah. Let's get this going.
You never hear that fast.
It worked out perfect. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is breaking news to most of the community. I don't know if anyone else has talked about it publicly, so we are probably the first ones publicly to put this information out.
So hopefully you can get this loaded quickly.
Yes.
Key?
Yeah.
I would appreciate it.
It'll go
Claudia,
straight to it.
Elliott put it in today's paper.
That was a good article, by the way.
Very good article. Yeah. I gave her an update from the April 28th Zoom meeting that we were talking about getting the commitment, and she wrote an excellent article at exactly what we've been discussing today, and that's in today's Tehachapi News.
Yeah.
But this is
so you gave her the scoop?
No. She's she's the writer for the whole every article, but she really laid it out very well. And but today that was the commitments we were talking about, verbal commitments. Today's news is that it's in writing.
It's been it will be funded.
Yes,
which
funded
is another. It's a quantum leap.
Yes,
yeah, that's a big deal. It's an email from the district director. One of the top 11 guys that run the various districts at Caltrans saying, we have the money, this is the day. So
yeah, and Mr. Tavares, and in quotes, I gave this to Claudia, he said that this 58 is an extremely significant route.
That's right.
And Ryan Dermody in District 9 in Bishop said 58 is the most important route in their district, in their region.
That's right.
So the two top people that we need on board, they've stepped up.
They recognized it and said yes.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Anything in closing, Phil?
Oh, no. Just happy to be here, be part of it. I'm thrilled.
All right. Well, folks, if you have a question based on today's discussion, send it to us at media@tehachapicityhall.com. We'll get it to Councilmember Smith. We'll get it to Jay, Greg. We'll get the answers that you're looking for. We appreciate the time you spend with us. Guys, once again, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you again soon here on Tehachapod.
Tehachapod is a conversation about Tehachapi, featuring the community members who make this such a special place to call home. If you have a question or a thought you'd like to share, email media@tehachapicityhall.com. thank you to Gary Mazzola for sharing his song, This is Tehachapi.